11 years ago, friend was messaging me as a friend and I let it go too friendly. I told husband I wouldn't message him again. I saw him at soccer and just talked as friends. He knew I was pregnant with daughter and would ask how I was doing. About a year ago, I started to have more friendly conversations with friend over WhatsApp. Nothing was flirty or inappropriate at this time and I didn't delete the messages. I saw him occasionally at soccer or social events, friend's wedding, and we would just catch up with each other on life/injuries with other mutual friends. Seemed to be normal. A couple months later the text started getting more flirty and I liked the attention. We sometimes called each other to check in and see how life was. I deleted the messages and the calls. I felt guilty but I honestly felt like someone understood my anxiety and I didn't have the stress of kids or everyday life that I had with husband. He started to ask about my relationship. I admitted that I wasn't happy with how things are going but I still loved husband and I wanted to focus on the marriage. He seemed to be supportive with all of this. There were some weeks that husband wasn't being nice to me or I was having a bad week and friend would ask how things are going with me and husband. I lied and said it was worse than it was to get support because I felt like I had none at home. I said things that I know would give me the validation I needed. That I cared about his support and he was helping me. There was emotional support that was lacking and felt husband wasn't able to provide at the time. I tried to talk to him about anxiety and emotions but at this point it was already too far gone and he was dealing with his own issues. We saw the small problems but not the big ones. I talked about my body insecurities. I sent a picture of my armpit area to show what I was insecure about. It wasn't a sexual picture but I can see how this may have been misleading. He asked me for more. A couple days later I sent a picture of my boobs. He sent a picture back but I asked him not to send me anything else. Friend asked what would happen if I asked husband to go to the football game with him as friends. I said he would say no. But friend told me I should because we were friends and he would say yes. I was honestly surprised that husband said yes. He asked to go to the football game with me. I usually went and met up with a variety of people anyways. Nothing inappropriate was done at the game. He drove me home and then pulled over. He asked if he could touch me. I said no. We kept talking for a little about my issues and I felt supported, so when he touched my breasts again, I let it happen. I wasn't happy, I felt immense guilt but I didn't stop it. He asked if I could touch him. I said no but then once again I felt like I would lose the support if I didn't. So I did and I tried to get it over with as soon as possible and I didn't feel any connection or desire. I felt so guilty and ashamed. I told myself I'm stronger than that but at this point I knew I couldn't tell husband because I would lose everything. We had some talks after this about me not wanting to do this and him being in a relationship as well. He didn't seem like he was pressuring me to make a choice. This happened 3 more times. Each time I felt like I was digging myself into a bigger hole and was still not happy other than the emotional support which I wasn't getting when I was being physical. I tried to have conversations with friend about how we couldn't keep doing this and I was always convinced that he was helping and not pressuring me into anything. There was another time we stopped for coffee and were talking in his car about life. He asked to touch me again. I said yes and then a minute later said no. He listened. He then asked for a blowjob. I said no and we continued talking. I'm honestly not sure what he said to convince me to. I was terrified afterwards. This wasn't how I wanted my life to go. I know I liked the support and the validation but I felt it got out of hand. I didn't know you could feel so guilty but also somewhat supported at the same time. It was easier to try and ignore the guilt and focus on the support I was getting. I tried looking for other ways to get the happy feeling. Nothing replaced the happy feelings I was looking for. He told me he had feelings for me but he didn't want to fuck up my marriage. I knew this didn't make sense because everything we were doing was fucking up my marriage. I was scared to tell husband anything was happening along the way because I felt like I was going to be screamed at / hurt / kicked out / felt feelings of never being good enough again. I wanted to be a good wife but I knew deep down I already fucked that up. There was no kissing / sex or any other touching of my body. That felt way too intimate and I felt sick even thinking about it. I wish I would have been stronger to say no and stick with it the previous times. He had a girlfriend for a couple of months towards the end. I asked him how he could say these things to me and still go home to her. I wanted to find a reason for why I was doing what I was doing. He always said that he knew he couldn't be with me so he needed to have someone else to fulfill those needs. I really just wanted the emotional support and I felt like I needed to do more physical things eventually to get that. It sickens me thinking I thought this. After this all went down and I lied to try to save anything I could. I only told part of the truth because it was easier. I called friend to tell him that I told husband about our relationship. He asked me if there was any way I could save it. I told him I couldn't talk to him again and to leave me alone. Not the right decision. I felt ashamed and angry at myself. I realized how much bigger of a problem it was. There was anxiety, self-worth, communication and abandonment issues that I never saw in the moment. It feels like I was on a bad autopilot and just going with anything that felt good to get rid of the shame. It wasn't the right choice. If I was worried about not being good enough for husband before, that's something I struggle with even more now because of what I did to him. I feel so guilty and ashamed that I didn't realize how bad things had got before it was too late. I made decisions that I am not proud of and will forever remember. I will grow from this experience and become a person who is more in control of her life. Subscribe for more similar stories with the gameplay.